What if you could walk into a crisis tomorrow? No power, no grocery store, no warning, and your family still eats well for months. That is not a fantasy. That is a pantry built with intention. And today, we are breaking down the exact 15 foods that make it possible, all on a real budget that actual people can stick to. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, pull up a chair, because this is the kind of video that could genuinely change how you shop forever. Now, before we get into the list, let me be clear about something. This is not about fear. This is not about doomsday bunkers or spending thousands of dollars at once. This is about being the kind of household that is calm when everyone else is panicking. The kind of family that does not frantically clear grocery shelves in an emergency because they already thought ahead. That peace of mind is worth every dollar we are going to talk about today. So how do we get there without breaking the bank? That is exactly what this video is about. We are going to go through 15 specific foods, why each one earns its spot in your stockpile, how to store them properly so they actually last, and what you can realistically expect to pay right now. Prices will vary depending on where you live and when you watch this, so treat these as ballpark figures and always compare at your own local store. Let us start with the foundation. Every serious food storage plan is built on a handful of core staples, and the first one is rice. 1. Rice. Rice is the backbone of budget food storage for a reason. It is calorie-dense, it is filling, it pairs with almost anything, and when stored correctly, it can last for decades. Not years, decades. Long-grain white rice is a fantastic starting point. Jasmine rice is a personal favorite because it has a naturally pleasant fragrance and it is gluten-free, which matters if anyone in your household has dietary restrictions or sensitivities. Now, here is the key that most beginners miss. Buying rice at the store and just leaving it in the paper bag on a shelf is not food storage. That is just groceries. Real storage means removing oxygen, sealing it properly, and protecting it from moisture, pests, and light. A vacuum sealer is one of the best investments you can make for this journey. Pull the air out, seal your rice into whatever portion sizes work for your household, and then place those sealed bags into food-grade buckets with airtight lids. There are specialty lids that twist open and reseal easily, which makes accessing your supply much more practical without compromising the seal every time you need a scoop. Do this correctly and your rice will outlast almost everything else in your pantry. Budget-wise, a 2-pound bag of basic long-grain white rice lands at roughly $1.30 at major discount retailers. That is an extraordinary amount of calories per dollar. Stock up steadily and rotate as you go. 2. Pasta. Pasta is the second pillar of a smart food storage plan. It is inexpensive, endlessly versatile, and most varieties store beautifully when kept dry and sealed. Think about how many completely different meals you can build around pasta alone. You've got hearty soups, baked casseroles, cold pasta salads, quick weeknight dinners. The variety keeps your stockpile from feeling monotonous, which matters more than people realize when you're actually relying on stored food day after day. Build a collection of shapes. Elbow macaroni is a workhorse. It works in macaroni and cheese, in pasta salads, in thick soups. Penne holds sauces beautifully and is perfect for baked dishes. Rigatoni is wonderful for layered casserole-style meals that stretch a small amount of meat or sauce into a full family dinner. Orzo, which is the tiny rice-shaped pasta, is a game-changer for soups and broths. A small handful thickens a soup and gives it substance without overpowering the other ingredients. Watch for sales at your local grocery chain and stock up aggressively when pasta goes on deep discount. The vacuum sealer works here too. Sealed pasta stored in a cool, dry place will far outlast the printed date on the box. 3. Sugar. This one surprises people who are new to food storage, but sugar deserves a dedicated spot in your stockpile. Granulated white sugar has an almost indefinite shelf life when stored properly in an airtight container away from moisture. It never truly expires in the way that other foods do. It might clump or harden, but the sugar itself remains usable. What makes sugar so valuable goes beyond sweetening your coffee. Sugar is a functional ingredient across hundreds of recipes. It is essential in baking, preserving, fermenting, and even some savory dishes. And here's something worth knowing. If you have plain granulated sugar on hand, you essentially have 3 sugars in one. Grind it fine enough and you have powdered sugar. Mix it with molasses and you have brown sugar. That flexibility is remarkable for the storage space and money it saves. A 4-pound bag runs about $2.10 at major discount stores. That is exceptional value. Store it in airtight buckets and it will be there whenever you need it. One critical storage note: do not use oxygen absorber packets with sugar. This is one of the most common mistakes new stockpilers make, and it causes the sugar to harden into a solid brick. Keep it sealed away from air and moisture, but skip the oxygen packets for this particular item. 4. Powdered milk. Here is where some people get skeptical. And honestly, that skepticism is fair if you have ever tasted low-quality powdered milk straight from a glass. But powdered milk is not primarily about drinking a glass of milk on its own. It is about functionality. It is about having a reliable dairy component available for baking, for cooking, for making creamy sauces and soups, for adding to your coffee when fresh dairy is not available. The quality of powdered milk varies significantly between brands, so it is worth spending a little more on a reputable option rather than grabbing the cheapest box and expecting your family to embrace it. Start introducing it gradually. Mix it into recipes first rather than serving it as a standalone drink. Let your household get used to the flavor in context before you serve it straight. At major discount retailers, basic canned potatoes run as low as 60 cents per can. Stock a variety of forms and you'll have real flexibility. 6. Lentils and split peas. Do not underestimate legumes. If rice is the backbone of your food storage, lentils and split peas are the muscle. They are packed with protein and fiber, they store for years in proper conditions, and they are genuinely inexpensive. A pound of dried lentils or split peas costs almost nothing relative to the number of meals it produces. Split pea soup is one of those deeply satisfying, filling meals that feels like it should be expensive and complicated, but is actually neither. If your household roasts a ham or buys a bone-in ham at any point, save the bone, freeze it. Then, when you are ready, simmer it with split peas, aromatics, and basic seasonings for a pot of soup that will feed your family for days. That combination of a saved ham bone and a bag of dried split peas that together cost almost nothing is one of the best budget cooking moves in the book. Red lentils dissolve as they cook and create thick, creamy soups and sauces. Green and brown lentils hold their shape better and work well in heartier preparations. Mix varieties in your stockpile so you have options. 7. Dried and canned beans. Beans deserve their own category because they are that important and that versatile. Dried beans are the superior long-term storage choice. They have a shelf life of 10 or more years when sealed correctly. They are loaded with protein and complex carbohydrates, and they are incredibly inexpensive per serving. A 4-pound bag of pinto beans is a prime example of emergency food at its most practical. Black beans work in everything: tacos, burrito bowls, soups, rice dishes, salads. Great northern beans create beautiful creamy textures in soups and slow-cooked dishes. Kidney beans anchor hearty stews and chilies. Chickpeas open the door to hummus, roasted snacks, and Mediterranean-inspired meals. A 15-bean blend gives you variety in a single bag and makes for a satisfying, thick soup with minimal. Pressure cookers and Instant Pots have made cooking dried beans significantly faster and easier than the old overnight soaking method, so that barrier to actually using your dried bean supply has largely disappeared. If you want the even more convenient option, canned beans deserve shelf space too. They are already cooked, they require no soaking or long simmering, and they are ready to eat or add to recipes straight from the can. Refried beans with a can of diced green chilies stirred in is one of those deceptively simple additions that turns a plain dinner into something people actually look forward to. Stock both dried and canned beans and give yourself maximum flexibility. 8. Canned soups and cream soups. Canned soups serve two distinct purposes in a well-stocked pantry. First, they are ready-to-eat meals on days when cooking from scratch is not happening. Whether you are sick, exhausted, short on time, or simply need a quick option, a can of chicken noodle or tomato soup requires almost no effort and delivers real comfort. Second, condensed cream soups are cooking ingredients that you are probably already using regularly without thinking of them as pantry staples. Cream of mushroom, cream of chicken, cream of celery, and cream of broccoli form the base of countless casseroles, pot pies, pasta bakes, and one-pan dinners. These are not just backup food, they are tools. Tomato soup is especially versatile. A basic can of tomato soup becomes something entirely different when you add milk instead of water. Stir in some dried basil and oregano and let it simmer for a few minutes. That simple transformation turns a 69-cent soup into something that feels like it came from a restaurant. Stock condensed cream soups when they go on sale, and you will always have a fast path to a complete dinner. At major discount retailers, these run roughly $1 to $2 per can, depending on brand and variety. 9. Canned vegetables. Here is where a lot of new stockpilers get hesitant, because canned vegetables have a reputation for being mushy and flavorless, and if you have only ever had bad canned vegetables, that reputation feels earned. But the reality is that canned vegetables are a legitimate, nutritious, budget-friendly food that belongs in any serious pantry. Corn, green beans, carrots, peas, mixed vegetables, beets, sweet potatoes, yams, cabbage, squash. The variety available in canned form is wider than most people realize. At major discount retailers, the average cost per can lands somewhere between 50 cents and $1.20, depending on brand and item. That is extraordinary value per serving, and these cans carry shelf lives measured in years, not weeks. The smart approach when building your canned vegetable stockpile is to try one can of an unfamiliar variety before committing to buying a dozen. Tastes vary, textures vary. What one household loves, another will not touch. So buy one, taste it, find a recipe that works with it, and then stock up on the ones that earn a place in your regular rotation. Sweet potatoes and yams in particular are worth having on hand because of their nutritional density. They are loaded with vitamins and pair well with both savory and sweet preparations. 10. Canned fruit. Canned fruit is one of the most pleasant parts of a long-term food storage rotation because it genuinely feels like a treat. Peaches, pears, mixed fruit, mandarin oranges, applesauce, these are foods that bring brightness and sweetness to a meal plan that might otherwise lean heavily on starch and protein. They are also a genuine comfort to children during stressful times, which is worth considering as you plan your stockpile. Applesauce carries a bonus trick that experienced pantry builders swear by. It can substitute for oil in many baking recipes, which means you can extend your baking supplies further by using applesauce as a partial replacement when oil runs low. That kind of flexibility between ingredients is exactly what a thoughtful stockpile enables. Look for canned fruit packed in juice rather than heavy syrup when possible. It keeps the sugar content reasonable and the flavor more natural. 11. Canned meat and fish. Protein is the element that most budget food storage plans handle the least effectively. Grains and beans carry the load, but having actual animal protein on hand makes a meaningful difference in both nutrition and morale. Canned tuna is the entry point that most households already have some familiarity with. It is versatile, relatively inexpensive, and easy to use. Tuna noodle casserole, tuna salad sandwiches, tuna pasta, tuna mixed into a cream soup with peas over rice. There are dozens of directions you can take a can of tuna, and each one feels like a proper meal rather than survival food. Canned clams are worth keeping for chowder. If clam chowder is a meal your household already enjoys, watch for sales at your local grocery and buy aggressively when the price drops significantly. Canned roast beef, while more expensive, brings genuine heartiness to dishes and can anchor a gravy-based dinner that feels substantial. Canned chicken is the most divisive option on this list. Some people find it perfectly fine, others struggle with the texture. If your household falls in the second camp, lean into it as an ingredient in heavily sauced dishes like enchiladas or soups, rather than trying to serve it in a context where the texture is front and center. Rotate your canned meats regularly and stock what your family will actually eat. Buying 20 cans of something nobody in your household enjoys is not preparedness, it is waste. 12. Oats. Oats are one of the most underrated staples in food storage, and they deserve far more attention than they typically get. Most people think of oats as a breakfast food and leave it there, but oats are actually a remarkably functional pantry ingredient with applications across a huge range of recipes. Old-fashioned rolled oats, quick oats, and steel-cut oats each have slightly different cooking properties and textures. For long-term storage, old-fashioned rolled oats are the most versatile and the most widely available at good prices. They work in oatmeal, obviously, but also in granola, in cookies, in meatloaf as a binder and extender, in overnight oats, in energy balls, in smoothies. Ground into a coarse flour, they can substitute for a portion of regular flour in many baked goods. That flexibility across sweet and savory cooking makes oats an exceptional value. Store them in sealed buckets away from moisture and light, and they will last for years. At major discount retailers, a large container of old-fashioned oats runs around $2.60. That is an exceptional number of servings per dollar. If oats are not already a regular part of your household's diet, start working them in now before you need them. Familiarity with an ingredient makes it feel like comfort food rather than emergency rations. 13. Canned tomatoes and tomato products. Few ingredients are as transformative in cooking as tomatoes, and canned tomatoes make that versatility available year-round without worrying about seasonal pricing or freshness. Crushed tomatoes form the base of pasta sauces, pizza sauces, shakshuka, and slow-cooked braises. Diced tomatoes add body and texture to soups, stews, chilies, and curries. Stewed tomatoes bring a sweeter, softer character that works well in slower preparations. Tomatoes with diced green chilies add a gentle heat and southwestern character that transforms rice dishes, eggs, and bean preparations. Tomato paste is a pantry essential that amplifies and deepens tomato flavor in a concentrated form. A small spoonful stirred into a sauce or braise adds a richness that is disproportionate to the tiny amount used. It stores beautifully in the can, and once opened, in small portions in your freezer. Stock a range of tomato products, and you will always have a foundation for a complete, flavorful meal no matter what else is available. Do not overlook canned tomatoes paired with diced green chilies as a standalone item. It adds significant versatility to your rotation, and the price point is reasonable. Watch for sales and stock up when the opportunity arises. 14. Bouillon, broth, and stock. This category might seem minor, but it is actually one of the most important flavor foundations in a long-term pantry. Broth and stock transform plain grains and legumes into actual meals. Rice cooked in chicken broth tastes entirely different from rice cooked in plain water. Lentils simmered in a rich beef broth with aromatics become something that feels like proper cooking rather than survival eating. That distinction between food that sustains you and food that genuinely satisfies you matters enormously when you are relying on your stockpile for an extended period. Bouillon tubes, bouillon powder, and concentrated paste versions are the most storage-efficient options. A single jar of concentrated bouillon powder will flavor dozens of pots of soup, broth, rice, and gravy. It stores at room temperature almost indefinitely when kept dry and sealed. Chicken, beef, and vegetable varieties give you maximum flexibility. Canned broth and boxed stock are convenient to have on hand too, though they take up more space than concentrated bouillon. If your storage space is generous, keep both. If you are working with limited shelf space, prioritize the concentrated forms and buy canned broth selectively for recipes where a full can is needed at once. 15. Baking essentials. The final category is one that often gets overlooked in traditional stockpile lists, but which makes an enormous practical difference over time. When you can bake from scratch, your food supply—
bread, biscuits, pancakes, muffins, flatbreads, pizza dough, simple cakes. All of these require a handful of basic baking ingredients that store well and cost very little. Flour is foundational. All-purpose white flour stores for a year or more when properly sealed, and significantly longer when vacuum-packed and kept cool and dark. Whole wheat flour has a shorter shelf life due to its oil content, so store less of it and rotate more frequently. Baking powder, baking soda, and yeast round out the basics. Keep your yeast refrigerated or frozen for maximum longevity, and test it periodically to confirm it is still active. Vanilla extract, salt, and a quality all-purpose seasoning blend complete a basic flavor toolkit that extends your cooking options significantly. Oil deserves mention here too. Coconut oil has the longest shelf life among common cooking oils and can substitute in most applications where a neutral oil is called for. Olive oil stores well and adds distinctive flavor to savory cooking. Buy in sizes that you will rotate through within the shelf life and pay attention to the best buy dates. When you can combine your stored grains, fats, sweeteners, and leavening agents into fresh baked goods, the psychological and nutritional difference in your household is significant. Food that smells like baking bread feels like abundance, even in difficult circumstances. Now let us pull this all together. Building a meaningful food stockpile does not happen in a single shopping trip. That approach leads to spending a lot of money all at once, buying things your family will not actually eat, and ending up with a pantry that feels overwhelming rather than reassuring. The approach that actually works is gradual, intentional accumulation built around your household's real eating habits. Start with the staples your family already knows and enjoys. If your household eats rice regularly, buying a 20-pound bag and storing it properly is an easy first step that feels natural. If pasta is a weekly staple, adding a few extra pounds during a sale costs almost nothing and builds your supply without any waste risk. Work outward from your existing habits rather than trying to build an entirely foreign pantry from scratch. Pay attention to sales cycles. Most grocery stores run predictable sale rotations on staples like canned goods, grains, and pasta. When something on your stockpile list goes on deep discount, that is the moment to buy in larger quantities. Between sales, buy your regular amounts. Over several months of following this pattern, your pantry will build substantially without any single shopping trip feeling painful. Invest in proper storage equipment before you invest heavily in food. Vacuum sealers, food-grade buckets with quality airtight lids, proper shelving in a cool, dark location, these investments pay dividends across every item in your stockpile. Food stored correctly lasts dramatically longer than food left in its original packaging on a shelf, exposed to heat, light, and humidity. Label everything. Write the date of purchase on every item you store. Practice first in, first out rotation so that nothing in your pantry is ever sitting ignored past its useful life. Rotate actively by cooking from your stockpile regularly and replacing what you use. A pantry you eat from is a living, practical resource. A pantry you never touch slowly becomes outdated and wasted. Think about water alongside food. Every dry good on this list requires water to prepare, and in the same scenarios where your food supply becomes critical, your water supply might be compromised too. Water storage deserves its own dedicated plan alongside your food storage strategy. And think about your cooking capacity. Some emergency scenarios involve power outages that make your normal stove or electric appliances unavailable. A propane camp stove, a wood fire cooking setup, or a solar oven gives you the ability to actually prepare the food you have stored. A pantry full of dried beans and rice is significantly less useful if you have no way to apply heat for the 2 hours it takes to cook them from scratch. Start small, stay consistent. The households that build genuinely useful food stockpiles are not the ones that spent $3,000 in a single weekend at a warehouse store. They're the ones who spent an extra $10 or $20 per week over the course of a year, buying things they already use, storing them properly, and rotating through them as part of normal life. That approach is accessible to almost any budget. It requires patience more than it requires money. There is something genuinely empowering about looking at a well-stocked pantry and knowing that your household could eat well for months without a single grocery run. That confidence is not about fear of the world. It is about being the calm, prepared person in your family and community who does not have to scramble when things get difficult. You have taken the first step by watching this video all the way through. That tells me you are serious about this. And if this breakdown gave you clarity, gave you a real starting point, or showed you something you had not considered before, then do me a favor and hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps more people find this content on my channel. And it lets me know that this kind of practical, budget-conscious information is what you want to see more of here. If you have a tip, a food item you swear by that we did not cover today, or a storage hack that has worked brilliantly for your household, drop it in the comments. This community learns from each other, and every perspective adds something valuable. The pantry that saves your family someday is the one you start building today. Not next month, not when things feel uncertain, today, with whatever budget you have available right now. Pick one item from this list, buy a little extra this week, store it properly, and take that first step. We will see you in the next